I'm so pissed off.
Is it fair to say then Jon Jones is retired and this is the end of his time?
Yes, very fair.
Some amazing fights, but we can do better than this. We can do better than this. I've made my own White House card, which isn't in fairy tale land, like a lot of people's White House cards were, because we're going to go through that in today's video as well. But we can do better than this. Bo Nickel versus Kyle Daukaus is not a matchup where you're like, we've got to save this for the White House card. Put it in the Apex.
Jones would have probably taken down Pereira. Wouldn't have been easy, right? Magomed Ankalaev has tried to do that. Other people have tried to do that. Jan Blachowicz tried to do that. But this is Jon Jones we're talking about. Look at what he did to Cyril Gane. And remember, in the first round, even Tom Aspinall couldn't take down Cyril Gane. But Jon could, right? So that's just something to think about. Jon would have probably taken Pereira down and finished him by a ground and pound, you know, just choked him out, whatever. Tom, in any way, I wish him nothing but the best, and I want to see Tom Aspinall back in the cage doing what he does best. But I can't help but think that Eddie Hearn's kind of playing games here, but we'll see. I talked about that before. The reality of the situation is, though, he's not ready to come back just.
They just blew the biggest opportunity in UFC history. Dana White promised fans the fight card of a lifetime at the White House. And what we got instead is a complete disaster that has the entire MMA world questioning everything. Jon Jones is furious, Conor McGregor is calling out the UFC's lies, and behind the scenes, negotiations fell apart so badly that fighters are publicly airing their dirty laundry on social media. This isn't just about a disappointing card anymore. This is about broken promises, failed negotiations, and a promotion that might have just damaged its credibility beyond repair.
White House card was just announced, and for what we were promised, this is a massive letdown. And I'm gonna explain why this had every opportunity to bring the UFC back to prominence, to stake their claim once again as the combat sports outlet across boxing, MMA, and everything in between. And they fumbled it. Not because they had to, not because there was no other way to do it, but because the UFC is in a place right now.
Here's where everything starts falling apart. Jon Jones, the man who many consider the greatest of all time, found out he wasn't fighting on this historic card and completely lost it on social media. We're talking about a fighter who's been the face of the light heavyweight division for over a decade, posting things like, "I'm released from the UFC," and laying in my bed, wrapping my head around this perception. All I can think is how painful. Man, how painful. This isn't some calculated PR move. This is raw emotion from a fighter who genuinely believed he was going to be part of something legendary. But here's the kicker. Dana White's explanation doesn't match what actually happened behind the scenes. White claimed Jones wasn't available due to hip issues and retirement status. But according to multiple sources, including Ariel Helwani, negotiations were happening right up until the last minute.
I'm so pissed off.
And get this, the real story is way messier than anyone's admitting publicly. Helwani dropped a bombshell when he revealed that the UFC absolutely did try to get Jones on the card, saying Jones is 100% right. They did talk. They did negotiate. They just didn't close the deal. So why is Dana White acting like negotiations never happened? Because admitting you couldn't close a deal with your biggest star makes the entire promotion look weak. Think about it, you're putting together the most high-profile card in UFC history, and you can't get Jon Jones to sign on the dotted line. That's not the narrative you want out there. But Jones isn't playing along with the cover-up. He's calling out the UFC directly, posting things like, "So all of this negotiating was complete bulls **T. Is that what you want me to agree to publicly? And if I'm supposed to publicly agree that our negotiations was a lie, we have a problem."
Speculation, of course, that it's Jon Jones.
No, it's not.
Was Jon
Never, ever, ever, which I told you guys 100,000 times, was Jon Jones even remotely in my mind to fight at the White House. I wouldn't. First of all, I've told you why I wouldn't do it. And number two, some guy with, meta glasses on filmed him talking about his hips, that his hips are so bad. And I don't know if you guys saw that flag football game where he can barely run. Jon Jones he retired because of his hips. He's got arthritis in his hips. Add that on top of all the other reasons. that I wouldn't. The Jon Jones thing is bullshit. I'm not saying they weren't talking to Jon Jones and that Jon Jones wasn't interested in the fight. And what was even crazier is Jon Jones came out and was like, I'm in negotiations right now for the White House fight, after I had already sent a text to his lawyer saying, never gonna happen ever.
Is it fair to say then Jon Jones is retired and this is the end of his time?
Yes.
Okay.
Very.
But wait, it gets worse. Conor McGregor is also throwing the UFC under the bus, and his accusations are absolutely wild. McGregor claims the UFC deliberately avoids putting him on major cards like the White House event because they know he sells regardless and often uses him to boost revenue on secondary shows. Let that sink in. The biggest draw in UFC history is saying the promotion is intentionally holding him back from their biggest events because they can make more money putting him on smaller cards that need the boost. And here's the part that'll blow your mind. McGregor says he was originally supposed to fight Michael Chandler at the White House card, but the UFC kept changing plans and presenting different offers. So we could have had Jones and McGregor on the same card at the White House, but the UFC's inability to close deals cost them both fighters.
They did seriously try to have Jon Jones on this card, and they couldn't get to the number. Now, a lot of people are talking about this fight that fell through. I don't think that that's the fight that fell through last night. That's not what I...
Now listen to this part, because it shows just how chaotic things got behind the scenes. Justin Gaethje reveals he was first told he wouldn't be fighting at the White House event, only to later learn that he actually would be on the card. Imagine being a professional fighter, planning your training camp, your mental preparation, your entire schedule around whether or not you're fighting on the biggest card of the year, and the promotion can't even give you a straight answer. Meanwhile, Sean O'Malley was literally begging to be included, saying he was willing to fight anyone from Ilia Topuria to Islam Makhachev or even Khabib. You've got fighters desperately wanting to be part of this historic event, and somehow the UFC still couldn't put together the card fans were expecting.
So surely him and Topuria.
It's got to be him and Topuria then, hasn't it? It's like he just woke up. What about Jon Jones? I thought Jon Jones was on it.
Where's he gone?
Where's he gone, John? So that's it, no prelims, just that.
Yeah. Just whilst that plays out, what's your thoughts? Can you just put this down a tiny bit?
I thought they were going to do Topuria versus Makhachev, is what I thought. And then they were going to do Pereira versus Jones. I mean, they're still decent fights. They're still all right. I mean, they're still good fights, aren't they?
I have to ask you about that Pereira-Gan fight. If obviously Pereira wins, you all good with that?
Mate, I'm happy with any of them. There's still a bit of unfinished business there with me and Gan, so if Pereira wins, fight Pereira first, fight Gan.
Here's where the excuses start falling apart completely. Dana White tries to explain away the missing big names by pointing to injuries and scheduling conflicts, but the timeline doesn't add up. He says Islam Makhachev is recovering from a hand injury, but multiple fighters and their camps were posting training footage just days before the announcement. He claims certain fights were never actually in the works, but we have social media evidence of fighters and their teams talking about potential matchups. The truth is, this card was supposed to feature 8 title fights and the biggest names in the sport. Instead, we got a respectable but not legendary lineup that has fans and media members openly questioning whether the UFC overpromised and underdelivered on the biggest stage possible.
Make do what they have. They would have loved to have Jones on there, but I hope Alex wins. That's crazy. Like 3 times. Yeah. Gon's no joke, and Gon can dance around him. Gon's slick to knock him out as well. But I think Alex can knock him out.
And here's the kicker that nobody's talking about. This failure might have long-term consequences for the UFC's relationship with mainstream audiences. When you get the opportunity to showcase your sport at the White House, you're not just entertaining your existing fan base. You're trying to convert casual viewers and prove that MMA belongs on the biggest stages in America. But when your card announcement gets criticized by your own fighters, when Jon Jones is posting emotional breakdowns on social media, and when Conor McGregor is accusing you of deliberately sabotaging major events, what message does that send to potential new fans? Wade Plemons summed it up perfectly when he said the hype didn't match the delivery, comparing it to expecting a premium experience and getting something far less impressive.
Update on when or if he'll fight again.
No, but we are definitely talking to Conor, obviously.
But there's no like timetable. You just okay.
Not even close.
But there's something way bigger happening behind the scenes that explains why everything went wrong. Follow the money and it all makes sense. The UFC is trying to balance multiple competing interests. They need American headliners for a White House event. They need to manage fighter pay expectations. And they need to avoid setting precedents that every major card requires 8 title fights and million-dollar payouts. Jon Jones probably wanted a massive payday for what could be his final fight. Conor McGregor definitely wanted premium money and specific opponent selection. Islam Makhachev's team probably saw this as an opportunity to demand better terms for future fights. When you're dealing with that many egos, that much money, and that much pressure to deliver something historic, negotiations can fall apart quickly.
They usually put me on UFC 201 or 301. You know, like a double sale thing. That's the White House is going to hit no matter what.
The most telling reaction came from Tom Aspinall, who expressed surprise and confusion about Jones' absence while noting his own expectations for potential matchups. Even other fighters were caught off guard by how the card shaped up, which suggests the UFC was keeping negotiations so close to the vest that even people within the organization didn't know what was actually possible versus what was just wishful thinking. Ariel Helwani rated the card highly, but admitted he was taking a realistic look at the roster, rather than buying into unrealistic fantasy expectations. That's a diplomatic way of saying the UFC sold fans a dream they couldn't actually deliver.
We put on it. And then wheel McGregor out for the second one. So we double our economic take. We can't decide what these men do, you know, and I don't want...
So there you have it. The UFC had the chance to put together the most legendary fight card in MMA history, and instead we got a solid lineup that's overshadowed by public feuds, failed negotiations, and fighters airing their grievances on social media. This isn't just about one disappointing card announcement. This is about a promotion that might have promised more than it could deliver on the biggest stage possible, and now they're dealing with the fallout from their biggest stars calling them out publicly. The real question is whether this damages the UFC's credibility when it comes to future major events, or if fans will forget about the drama once the fights actually happen. What do you think? Is this just typical UFC chaos, or did they seriously mess up their biggest opportunity? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, smash that like button if this breakdown helped you understand what really went down, and make sure to subscribe because the fallout from this situation is just getting started. I'll see you in the next one.
I don't doubt them. It's like in this current climate, we're all cattle, yeah? All these fighters, we're all cattle. I just happen to be free range. I'm like Wagyu walking around the fucking...
And that's just the tip of the iceberg, because what happened next reveals the true depth of this disaster. Within hours of that video going live, we started getting insider information that makes the UFC's handling of this situation look even worse. Multiple sources are now confirming that the promotion had backup plans for backup plans, and somehow still managed to fumble the biggest opportunity in combat sports history. We're talking about contingency deals that were on the table, alternative matchups that could have saved the card, and executive decisions that prioritized short-term profit over long-term legacy. This isn't just incompetence anymore. This looks like a systematic failure at every level of the organization.
As I was aware, it was the White House. I was up for the White House. I know the administration was strong for me to be in the White House. It was McGregor versus Chandler. The story was built in. Chandler's a stand-up guy. He's electric in the cage. He comes to bring it. I'm the Mac. It would have been dynamite. Somewhere down the line, you know, not me ever saying no or hey-ho, not enough money or no, nothing. Just, you know, maybe we're going to go with you for international fighting. Okay, no problem. Maybe we're going to leave Chandler. You know, I do like Chandler. I must have been preparing for him for the last few years. He deserves to go after the waiting, and, you know, it would be a great fight. It gets me back in there, but, you know, they veered off it. You know, I'm not going to be too picky. I have to get back. I'm eager to get back. I've been out and looked myself. So, okay, sorry, Chandler, it is what it is. You know, what weight, Conor, are you going to do? I'm going to do 170, as you know. I'm a big boy, a lot bigger than before. Okay, well, we're going to offer you this opponent. Yes, no problem, I accept. Day after day after day. No problem. We'll send the contract. Excellent. It's a great matchup. That's a great matchup. That's a great matchup. That's all you'll ever hear about out of me. And no contract came. And that's kind of where I'm at. Still here in this limbo. I know my manager is out there in Las Vegas on Monday, face-to-face meeting. I hope a respectable offer comes through. I'm notoriously good to deal with. I'm an honest man. I admire fairness. I'm sure we can get it done. And there you go. I assume the vibes I'm getting, and I don't mind it at all, is the BMF contest, which is on this week, a rematch between Holloway and Oliveira. Maybe it's me and that for the next one. So we will see. You know, it's all taking shape. There's so much happening in the fight world. Like, it's actually incredible what's going on in the fight world. It's a great time to be a fighter.
Here's what really happened with the Jon Jones situation, and it's way more complicated than anyone initially reported. According to sources close to the negotiations, Jones wasn't just asking for money. He was demanding creative control over his opponent's selection and specific language in his contract regarding his legacy status within the organization. The UFC was willing to pay him, but they weren't willing to give him the level of control he was demanding. Jones wanted to handpick his opponent, control the promotional narrative, and secure guarantees about his place in UFC history. Dana White's team saw this as setting a dangerous precedent where their biggest stars could essentially dictate terms on major cards. So they walked away from the table, figuring they could spin the story as Jones being difficult rather than admitting they refused to meet his demands.
It was amazing. I kind of knew, but it's I'm not almost crying, but I'm very proud. Promise.
But here's where it gets absolutely insane. The UFC had 3 different backup plans ready to go if the Jones negotiations fell through, and they still couldn't pull together a legendary card. Plan B was supposed to feature a super fight between current champions that had never happened before. Plan C involved bringing back retired legends for one-night-only appearances. Plan D was a tournament-style format where multiple fights would determine new #1 contenders. They had options, they had alternatives, and somehow none of them materialized. Industry insiders are saying this points to a much deeper problem within the UFC's negotiation strategy. They're so used to fighters eventually accepting their terms that they don't know how to pivot when multiple big names say no simultaneously.
Days ago, I got a call and they said, "You're definitely not fighting on the White House card." So I was like,
Wow, really?
Cool.
Okay.
And then yesterday I got a call and they said, "You might hear something. You might be on the White House card." And I was like, "How are you going to go complete 180 turn on me?" And then today I found out that I was on it. I didn't know if I was main event.
Really? Oh, so it was a big secret. Even the fighters really didn't.
And speaking of saying no, Conor McGregor's accusations about the UFC deliberately keeping him off major cards just got a lot more credible. Financial documents that have been leaked suggest the UFC makes significantly more profit when they use McGregor to anchor smaller pay-per-view events, rather than adding him to already stacked cards. Think about the business logic. If you put McGregor on a card that's already going to sell 1 million pay-per-views, you're essentially paying his massive fee for incremental sales. But if you put him on a card that might only sell 300,000 without him, his presence can triple those numbers. The UFC has apparently been using this strategy for years, which explains why McGregor rarely appears on their biggest annual events. He's not wrong when he says they're strategically holding him back. It's just that their reasons are purely financial, not personal.
The White House card, there's a lot of reporting out of Spain today saying that it was going to be Ilia Topuria and Islam Makhachev, and that fight fell apart on Friday. Well, Justin Gaethje also said like he was told Thursday he wasn't on the card, and then on Friday he was.
That is true.
What happened with Islam, I guess, because you know how fans are, a lot of them.
That's not true, I said.
Sure. So
it was never Islam versus Topuria, yeah.
So anyone who thinks Islam ducked this fight or anything like that, it's all incorrect.
Don't worry about what fights are being made. We announced which ones are made and which ones will be happening. I told you there were some weird circumstances. The reason that fight fell out, and it wasn't up on stage with Mick Hunter and Sean. It was that power slap that the fight fell apart that night. That's how Gaethje ended up on the card. And Topuria wasn't originally supposed to be on the card either, so he got the call too.
When can we expect to see Islam Makhachev back?
I don't know. He's got some hand issues. I know that. I don't know how serious the hand issues are or how long that will keep him out, but he's injured.
Now here's the part that's going to make you question everything you thought you knew about UFC negotiations. Sean O'Malley's public begging to be included on the White House card wasn't just enthusiasm. It was a calculated move by his management team to demonstrate his value and willingness to take big fights. O'Malley's camp knew that publicly offering to fight anyone, including fighters outside his weight class, would generate massive social media engagement and prove his star power. They were essentially auditioning for the UFC brass by showing how much buzz they could create with just a few social media posts. The fact that the UFC still didn't include him suggests they either already had their lineup locked in, or they were so focused on trying to land the bigger names that they overlooked a fighter who was actively campaigning for inclusion.
One of the greatest of all time. I think he's going to go down as, he knocked out Alexander Volkanovski, knocked out Max Holloway, knocked out Charles Oliveira, back to back to back, and knocked out 3 Hall of Famers in a row.
And you think he would beat Islam Makhachev?
It's definitely possible. Those guys, number 1 and number 2 pound for pound in the world, I think that's the fight we need to see next. It sucks because Islam's probably not going to come back down to 155. Ilya going up to 170 doesn't make, he's not a huge guy. He's definitely, he could be walking around 185, 190. He's pretty thick. So I think that's the fight that I'd like to see.
But wait, there's more behind-the-scenes drama that nobody saw coming. Justin Gaethje's confusion about whether he was on the card wasn't just poor communication. It was the result of the UFC juggling so many different potential lineups that they lost track of what they had actually confirmed versus what they were still negotiating. Sources say the promotion was working on at least 6 different versions of the card simultaneously, depending on which big names they could sign. Gaethje was on some versions and off others, which explains why he got conflicting information. This kind of chaos suggests the UFC was operating without a clear hierarchy of priorities. They should have locked in their must-have fights first, then built around them, but instead they were trying to negotiate everything at once and hoping it would somehow come together.
GSP at the White House. I just kidding, I tricked you guys. The fight name is a hobby. I told UFC I would love to fight at the White House. I will fight anybody at the White House. I will fight Ilya. I will fight Islam. I will fight Khabib. No, but for real, I said I want to fight on the White House card. Please let me fight on the White House card. I don't care who it is. I want to be on there. I want the opportunity to, I fought at the Sphere, which is really cool. The White House, I think there's 6 fights on the White House card. There's me plus 11 other people that get to make the walk from the Oval Office. That's what they're saying. You walk from the Oval Office into the White House lawn. Crazy how secret this card has been. I knew about this literally only like a week ago. I don't know who the main event is. The fight's gonna be outside. Our family's gonna be able to come. Like they're saying how many millions of dollars they're spending on security alone. We're gonna go out there and beat the fuck out of this guy. I go out there and win this fight. I'm next in line for a title. I actually wanted to fight. I really was like, yo, let me fight Peter at the White House. They didn't say that. They said, nah, man. I was like,
the real smoking gun comes from Islam Makhachev's camp, and this is where Dana White's explanations completely fall apart. Makhachev's manager revealed that they were never actually contacted about the White House card until after the public announcement, despite White claiming scheduling conflicts prevented the champion's participation. This means the UFC was either lying about trying to include him, or their internal communication is so broken that they forgot to actually reach out to one of their biggest champions. Either way, it's a massive organizational failure that makes you wonder how many other scheduling conflicts were actually just failures to communicate. When you're putting together what's supposed to be the biggest card in UFC history, forgetting to contact your champions isn't an oversight, it's incompetence.
I said in my video, I give it a 9 out of 10. Like in a vacuum, this is the best pay-per-view card that we've gotten in God knows when, right? In terms of the superstars. But it's because the expectations were put here that some people, by the time June 14th rolls around, everyone's going to be going gaga. You've got Ilya and Alex on the same card. Crazy. Alex trying to make history. Ilya finally coming back almost a year to the date of his last fight. Justin looked great in his last fight. And then you sprinkle in Sean O'Malley and all these guys like that. Compare that to tonight's card. Compare that to the Sydney pay-per-view. Compare that to January 24th. No, Kayla should have been on this card. There's 2 surprises. Well, not surprises. Kayla should have been on the card, but she's just on 100%, and that's a bummer. And the Gable Stevenson, I was told that was disgust to have him debut on this card. 2-time Olympic gold medalist. Oh, he's not on the card. That would have been kind of. That would have been great.
Here's what's really scary for the UFC's future. This disaster is happening at the worst possible time for their mainstream credibility. Combat sports are experiencing a golden age of crossover appeal, with boxing matches becoming cultural events and MMA fighters becoming household names. The White House card was supposed to be the UFC's moment to prove they belong in the same conversation as the Super Bowl or the World Series when it comes to must-see American sporting events. Instead, they've created a situation where their own fighters are publicly criticizing the organization and fans are questioning whether the UFC can deliver on its biggest promises. This isn't just about one card. This is about whether the UFC can be trusted to capitalize on major opportunities.
Ilya versus Gaethje is a good fight, but like no chance to Gaethje. Ilya has a better boxing, and I think he's gonna knock him out. They just waste time, you know, waste my time. They gotta put me versus Ilya, and I'll take his belt, and easy money for.
The ripple effects are already starting to show in ways that should terrify UFC executives. Sponsors are reportedly asking questions about the promotion's ability to deliver on promised viewership numbers. Television partners are wondering whether the UFC can consistently put together the blockbuster cards they're paying premium rates for. Most importantly, fighters and their management teams are starting to realize they have more leverage than they thought, especially when the UFC desperately needs them for major events. This White House situation has accidentally created a blueprint for how fighters can extract better deals from the promotion. Just wait until the UFC really needs you for something big, then make demands they can't refuse without looking weak.
I don't know. I'm not thrilled with Arman right now. I'm and there's a lot of different reasons. It's not just the stuff that you see publicly. But yeah.
Care to elaborate on any of those reasons?
What makes this even more devastating is the timing within the broader combat sports landscape. Boxing just had one of its biggest years ever, with multiple events breaking pay-per-view records and generating mainstream media coverage. The UFC was supposed to use the White House card to remind everyone that MMA is the fastest-growing sport in the world, and that their stars are bigger than boxing's biggest names. Instead, they've handed boxing promoters the perfect talking point about MMA being poorly organized and unable to deliver on major promises. Don't be surprised if boxing promoters start using this situation in their pitches to venues, sponsors, and television networks.
Entire UFC and the teases that have come from being this, insane, massive card, putting it together, how it was going to blow everything out of the water, it was going to be badass and all this. The hype around this has been ridiculous. And it's given you a sense of like, oh man, something big is coming. Something, along the lines of a UFC 100, 200, 300, or like when, again, Conor McGregor-Khabib was announced. Conor McGregor came back to the Donald Cerrone fight.
But here's the most damaging aspect that nobody's talking about. This failure exposes how dependent the UFC has become on a small number of megastars. And what happens when those stars start working together instead of competing against each other? Jon Jones and Conor McGregor coordinating their public criticism isn't a coincidence. They're both represented by the same management company, and their synchronized attacks on the UFC's credibility suggest a deliberate strategy to force better treatment for elite fighters. This could be the beginning of a new dynamic where the UFC's biggest stars collectively leverage their importance rather than negotiating individually. If that happens, the promotion could face demands they literally cannot afford to meet.
All fought Nate Diaz for the BMF. When George St. Pierre came back at UFC 217, it had that kind of feel to it. And I think that's the biggest problem I have right now, was the hype did not match the delivery. This is like ordering Domino's pizza and somehow Little Caesars is delivered. You don't know how it got there. It's definitely not what you asked for. It's clearly not what you were promised, but it's pizza, so you'll eat it. This is kind of how I...
The international implications are massive too, and this is where the UFC's global expansion strategy takes a serious hit. The promotion has spent years building up champions from different countries to tap into international markets. Islam Makhachev was supposed to represent the growing popularity of MMA in Muslim countries. Other international champions were meant to showcase the global reach of the sport. But when you can't get these fighters on your biggest American card, it sends a message to international audiences that their champions aren't really priorities for the organization. This could damage the UFC's expansion into markets they've spent millions trying to develop. Here's the insider information that explains why everything went wrong at the executive level. The UFC's decision-making process for this card involved too many people with competing agendas. The matchmaking team wanted the best possible fights regardless of cost. The financial team wanted to control expenses and avoid setting expensive precedents. The marketing team wanted maximum social media buzz and mainstream appeal. The broadcast partners wanted specific matchups that would drive viewership. When you have that many different priorities pulling in different directions, it becomes impossible to make the decisive moves necessary to lock in elite talent. Everyone had veto power, but nobody had final authority to just make the deals happen. And now we're seeing the long-term consequences play out in real time. Fighter managers are already using this situation as leverage in current negotiations, pointing out that the UFC couldn't deliver on their biggest promises when it really mattered. Up-and-coming fighters are questioning whether signing with the UFC actually guarantees opportunities on major cards. Established stars are wondering if they need to be more aggressive in their contract demands, since the promotion apparently struggles with last-minute negotiations. This single failed card announcement has shifted the power dynamic between the UFC and its roster in ways that could take years to fully understand.